Aubrey Plaza, you co-star in the FX series Legion as Lenny Busker. Now, I know this character was originally written for a male actor, and the writing stayed the same when you came on board. In general, was it challenging to wrap your mind around just the concept of this show and this character when it first came to your attention?
Yes, it was. I only read the first episode, so I had a lot of questions and I had no idea where it was headed. I was given, you know, very little information about Lenny, but I did know kind of where that character would end up in the end. So I had a broad kind of strokes view of what was going to happen, but I didn't really know how. So yeah, it was a lot to wrap my mind around for sure.
Now, the main character of the show, David, is in a mental institution. He believes he's schizophrenic. And I had a chance to actually talk to Dan Stevens, your co-star, not long ago.
Oh, you
And
did?
he had a sneaking suspicion that you were more privy to the story and where the story was going than he was, which of course makes sense given the nature of your character. So what did you know, and when did you know it as the season went along?
I did know a little bit more than Dan, which I held over his head, and I kind of teased him a lot. And I thought, in a way, it would be appropriate to kind of mess with him and make him believe that I knew way more than he did. But I didn't know that much more. But it was really fun watching him try to figure it out. And yeah, but honestly, we were all in the same boat. Like every episode, we would read just hungrily, waiting for more clues and more information, and try to piece it together. And we would all kind of ask each other, like, well, what did Noah say to you? Or did you hear this? Or, we were all kind of in this really confusing haze the whole time. But I think it helped, with the energy of the show and everything.
Were you familiar at all with the comic books that the show is based on before you took the role?
No, I was familiar with X-Men, but that I did not know that Legion existed. And yeah, so I did some Marvel research there.
The interesting thing about Lenny is that the actual character of Lenny dies in the first episode, but then we see her appear in David's mind, and she turns out to be the Shadow King, who is trying to take over his mind. With a character whose very identity seems to kind of elusive, and it kind of morphs as the story goes along. How do you approach that character from as an actor?
Well, I approach it as I would any character. I just try to connect to the human story. I wouldn't necessarily ever say to myself, like, oh, I'm playing a villain, I need to, be scary or anything like that. I just, for me, every character, bad or good, has wants and needs just like anybody else. And so I tried to really focus on that, and just to focus on what David Haller means to Lenny, and what Lenny needs from David, and why she needs it, and just tried to kind of focus on that objective. And then along the way, I just wanted to have fun with the character, and I really wanted to play I guess a villain that you love or that you like to hate or something. Like I think it's really fun to play characters that have really complicated agendas. So yeah, I just kind of gave over to that, I guess.
As the season goes along, and the Lenny character, the Shadow King character, gets darker and more sinister, was it harder to connect to kind of that human, emotional side that you were able to connect to, or were you always able to kind of see the wants and needs of this character, from the character's eyes?
I think the most challenging part for me towards the end of the season was just kind of tracking all of the layers and the different facets of Lenny, the different types of Lenny that you had seen. There's one scene in the end where she kind of reveals herself to him, and that was really challenging, just to keep all of those versions of Lenny alive. I think that was the hardest part. I think because there's part of Lenny that really is his friend, and then there's part of Lenny that's really messing with him, and then there's part of Lenny that there's like all kinds of different versions. So but they all boil down to one character, so it was a really hard thing to navigate, but I tried my best, I guess, is all I can say. Oh,
the show.
Oh goodness. Sorry.
No problem. With the show going back and forth, through time periods and through realities, mental realities, actual realities, did it ever feel like, even though you tried to focus this character playing this one role, did it ever feel like almost like multiple roles on multiple different shows?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I had so much fun. I really got to explore every extreme version of Lenny in each episode. Episode 6, when I'm therapist, Dr. Busker, that was really fun because I got to kind of take on this other persona. But for me, they were all there was a through line to all of them, and they were all the same entity, but just using different tactics, to manipulate or get whatever Lenny wanted at the time.
Now, the series as a whole, another thing that's interesting about it is it has such a distinctive look, from the sets to the editing to the cinematography. And a lot of that, I'm sure, is post-production. But what is it feeling like on set, when actually shooting the series?
It's really, the sets were amazing, especially the mental hospital, Clockworks. They built an entire, fully realized mental institution in the soundstage. So when you stepped into that set, you kind of got lost. I would always feel like, I really felt like I was in a real mental hospital, all of the characters just kind of milling about and waiting for the next setup felt to me like what it would feel like to actually be there. So, I think because the show is a Marvel show and they have a lot of resources and they're able to create such detailed sets and things, like it's really helpful as an actor to be surrounded by such real things. But then, there was also green screen stuff. And of course we were in the astral plane. So, that took a lot of imagination. So it was kind of a really great combination of both things for me.
And given all that goes into it, the green screens and the effects that would show up after the fact, what did you think about it when you got to see kind of the finished product for the first time?
I was always totally blown away by how they would put the episodes together. From the script to the final product, they were always so different in my mind, because you have such a clear idea of what it is in your own mind when you read it for the first time, and then to see them put it together in such ways, especially some of the sequences towards the end of the season, like the black and white silent film sequence in episode 7 really blew my mind, because it wasn't written like that. It was written like with scenes and dialogue and stuff. So just I was really excited by it. It's really so much fun to see what those artists can do in the post-production process and how it changes and enhances everyone's performance and stuff. It's really, really cool.
The initial premise of the show is, has the character of David starting in the mental hospital because he's believed to be schizophrenic, but then we come to realize that it's a combination of his mutant powers, his mental abilities, and also the Shadow King messing with his mind. So in a sense, your character is kind of a metaphor for mental illness in a way. Did you ever look at it that way?
I wouldn't say that I did. I mean, that might not have been so helpful for me at the time, but looking back on it and watching the episodes, I can totally make that connection. But and I definitely tapped into that idea of just, I mean, the scariest thing for me to imagine is to live and not know what's real or not. That's just terrifying for me. So I think, tapping into that idea definitely kind of reminded me of just how serious mental illness is, and I think the show really tackles it in a really smart way, I guess.
One of the another reason I think your role has such an impact on the show is because it is kind of against type compared to some of the more comedic roles that you've been known for in the past. Did it feel like a markedly different acting experience than you're used to for that reason or any other reason?
Yes, completely. Yeah, it's a totally different, totally different character, totally different way of working. For me, I approach comedic roles and dramatic roles the same way. I treat them both with the same levity, and I treat all of those characters like fully realized human beings, whether they're supposed to be funny or not. But it was definitely more intense of an experience, I think, to do something like this. But I really liked it a lot.
Arguably, before Legion, your best known role was probably April in Parks and Recreation, which of course is a drastically different show in style and tone. What are the biggest differences you would say in terms of shooting Legion versus a show like Parks and Rec?
Well, there were a lot more funny pranks happening on set on Parks and Recreation. Doing a half-hour sitcom is so different. It's in a lot of ways, it's a really kind of foolproof formula, and I look at it, in kind of in the way of improv comedy, where there's a game that's being played. Each character has a game, which is really it's their personality and how and why that's funny and how they interact with the other characters. So I knew very specifically, like, okay, as April Ludgate, my game with Jerry is that everything he does is disgusting to me, and I can just play that game all day, so it's fun like that. It's a different way of working. But on something like Legion, which to me felt like we were shooting a movie, it's more about really kind of digging into these scenes and finding the emotional kind of truth of each moment, and having real objectives and kind of getting what you need out of every character and every scene. But for comedies, for April Ludgate and for Parks and Rec, it's more about kind of like, it's about objectives, of course, but it's a little bit more fun and a lot more laughs, obviously. We were laughing a little bit, Dan and I and Rachel and everything, but it was pretty serious most of the time.
In her own comedic way, April was a somewhat dark, misanthropic character. Do you think she and the Shadow King might have gotten along well if they ever met?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I'm sure they both would have really gotten a kick out of each other. Yeah, I think they would have gotten along, sure.
Your primary scene partner in the show is Dan Stevens. Of course, your character occupies his mind. What was it like working with him on these, this strange kind of, unique relationship that these characters have, kind of inhabiting one mental space in a way?
It was amazing. I love working with him. He's such an amazing actor, and he was really interested in rehearsals and really exploring, taking all of the scenes to the limit and really kind of making really bold choices, and choices that you maybe wouldn't have expected. And we were both really similar in that way, I think, which is why we enjoyed working together, because it was really just kind of a blank canvas for us. The script is so wild and up for interpretation that to have someone that's willing to kind of dive off the deep end is really a gift. So I think it was really fun, and I think he just brought we fed off each other, in a lot of ways, off camera, on camera. It was very art imitates life, imitates art kind of scenario.
And of course, the series creator is Noah Hawley, who also developed Fargo, which is also on FX. Vastly different show from this, of course. What was it like working with him on a project like this? It
was really, it felt great. I was really a huge fan of Fargo. I read his book Before the Fall, which I loved, and I just think he's a brilliant writer. So I was so excited to be able to say his lines that he wrote that came out of his brain, you know. And he's really collaborative. That was one thing that I really enjoyed. He's really open, and I love working with directors and writers that are willing to collaborate with actors and to really kind of let things evolve, you know. So he's really like that, and I think that's why he's so smart. He's just kind of he's interested and a curious person, and he's not closed off. You know, he's really kind of in it for the journey, and I think that's really cool. So I'm just like really happy that he took a risk on me and you know, took a chance on me, I guess.
Now, Legion is coming back for a second season. Since the Shadow King did escape in the season finale, I would imagine that you play a part in that upcoming season. Now, without asking you to give away specifics, you know, how much do you know at this point about the season coming up, and what are your thoughts on maybe to see it go?
I don't know anything. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I mean, I didn't know anything to begin with. I'm sure I won't know anything this time. But I mean, I know how the last season ended, so I have a feeling that I'm going to get to have some playtime with Jermaine Clement, and I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that happens, because I just want to see those two characters interact. So that would be really exciting, but I don't know what will happen.
Yeah, that seems like a very intriguing dynamic to explore. That, you know, those, you know, that kind of mental parasite character that you play, and that very strange otherworldly character that he plays, sharing some scenes together. What do you think? Like, if you'd been able to share some of those scenes with him in this season, what did you think about those scenes? And you know, if you know, to be the idea of being a part of that kind of dynamic.
I mean, I love watching him. He's amazing. His character is so fun. Even down to his weird safari looking weird outfit that he wears. Like, I just think, I don't know. I think the possibilities are really endless with the two of them. And I'm excited to see what version of Lenny will, you know, will inhabit his space, because it will be different. You know, I think that Lenny will change according to whoever she's dealing with. So I don't know what that'll be, but I think it'll be really interesting.
Well, I want to congratulate you on Legion, and best of luck on that second season to come. I thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Thank you. I'm glad this worked out, this thing.
Absolutely. It was absolutely great. Thank you so much.
Okay.